Practice number 8 for the Colorado Buffaloes, and before we kind of talk about the post-practice press conference, it was nice to see some former Colorado offensive linemen here today. Jeremy Irwin, Jonathan Huckins, Alex Kelly, all in attendance, and a lot of guys that or 3 guys that we covered a lot. They played a lot of football for the Buffs, back in the day, and so it's kind of cool to see them.
Yeah, and Alex Kelly is still competing in the strongman competition. He said he's got an event coming up in Las Vegas, and Jonathan Huckins has slimmed down. Like you mentioned, he looks more like a tight end now, and Jeremy Irwin's living in Arvada expecting a child. So it's always cool to see those guys come back here, and they all had big smiles on their face. You think, some of these years it's been tough to have a whole lot of pride in your alma mater. There's a whole lot of pride out there right now from Colorado's alumnus. Yeah,
and I will say, chatting with Jeremy Irwin, he obviously played left tackle here for the Buffs, and he was telling me the one guy, unprompted, he told me this, the one guy that was really impressed him is the left tackle Jordan Seaton. He goes, I didn't think much, freshman coming in, but he goes, wow, that guy's impressive. So from a guy that played left tackle and was a pretty good left tackle, it's good to hear that Jordan Seaton is impressing him in the early going. So and we kind of are seeing that in well off as well. I mean, Jordan Seaton should impress, as a 5-star, but it's good to hear that from a guy who played left tackle.
Yeah, no question. Jeremy Irwin was telling me just the offensive line in general was impressing him, and it's the time for being optimistic right now, but all the signs have pointed towards that group has massively had an upgrade since last season. Seaton, there's going to be mistakes because any true freshman's got to learn from a few things, but I don't know if it's ready to be in pen, but it sure looks like it's in pencil that he's this team's starting left tackle, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it sounds like that might be a good choice, that he's doing well with it. So we were able to chat with Corners coach Kevin Mathis, which we haven't been able to do. I think the only time we've ever talked to him was his initial press conference. We were supposed to a couple times last year, but it didn't work out for whatever reason. But it was great to hear from him. I mean, he had gave us some great insight, talked a lot about not only the corners, but the secondary in general. And that group, very versatile, and some guys that are in different spots. Omaran Cooper playing a little more safety than we saw last year. He was a starting corner most of the year. Carter Stoutmeyer has been safety. He's injured right now, but sounds like he's going to be more of a corner, corner or nickel at this point. So a lot of guys moving around.
And even Preston Hodge is being able to play outside, inside, and Coach Mathis mentioned that really frees them up with Travis Hunter. I think at this point, and things, there's a long way to go until they kick off the season opener, but it sure feels like DJ McKinney, Preston Hodge, and Travis Hunter are kind of those main 3 guys at corner. Now, Cormani McLean, he said, came back today, did some work. Cormani put out a workout video on social media the other day, so he's working his way back. It sounds like they got to get his conditioning back, and so we'll see what that looks like there, and we'll see, does Omaran Cooper stay at safety? I like him a lot as a football player, and just the aggressiveness that he plays with. Same with Jaden Milliner-Jones, who's dealing with a hamstring injury right now. Those guys seem like natural fit for the safety position. There were a couple times where Omaran Cooper had a gaffe here and there last year, but generally he was one of those guys that you could tell had the care factor when you turn on the football game. And so a lot of interchangeable pieces in that group, and Preston Hodge is going to be a guy that I think you see both at corner and nickel.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting with a guy like Omaran Cooper, because I thought he played some good football last year, but even Coach Mathis said, probably a more reduced role this year, but they like what he can do. You have to wonder, a guy like that's a veteran, the transfer portal is a thing. Does he stick around with that reduced role? So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. But, one guy that will be here is Travis Hunter. And he talked about, Travis is playing much more inside right now. And that's where, he says a lot of times the opponent's best receiver is in the slot now, and they want Travis Hunter there. And so it's going to be interesting to see Travis playing inside, because he was exclusively outside last year.
Yeah, I think part of that might kind of depend on the matchup, right? And I do think that if the matchup is right, his football intelligence in that role is going to create a lot of big plays and some takeaways, because he's going to be a little bit closer to the action there. The worry there would be playing too much in the boxes. That's a toll, and especially when you're playing pretty much full-time offensively as well. So that's the part of it. I think they'll be able to rotate a lot more in the secondary this year. They had to at times last year, but a lot of that had to do with injuries and evaluation and trying to figure out who their guys are. especially when you bring in a DJ McKinney, who's really looked the part. He almost kind of looks like Delrick Abrams did when he was an upperclassman here, and DJ McKinney's got quite a bit of eligibility left. When he left Oklahoma State, I reached out to somebody that covered him out there, and he said that's probably the biggest loss the Cowboys had to the portal all offseason, and so he's fit in right away. Just, again, a lot of versatile pieces and quite a bit more depth in that group now.
And even I would even say a little bit thicker version of Delrick Abrams. You know, he's kind of long and lean, but I think he's a little more thicker, or a little thicker than maybe Abrams was. But he looks good. I mean, DJ McKinney is a guy that played. He was not a starter last year, but had starter, I guess, minutes. He was a basketball term, but his play count was like a starter level. And so it's going to be very interesting to watch that secondary. But it was good to hear from DJ. A great pickup for the Buffs, and does have a lot of experience. And so, any other thoughts on the secondary?
Well, one more thing with DJ McKinney, he mentioned that he was playing a lot of off man last year. Now it's more press man here, and we've continued to hear that about this scheme. And Coach Mathis talked about Robert Livingston and the changes that they have there. It's clear that Charles Kelly came in here with a blueprint that works for Alabama, and this is something Coach Mathis said, that it's harder to do that when you don't have that culture already built up. And when you're building your program through the transfer portal, I think having a system that allows the players to play fast is going to be beneficial. And that, again, spring is a time for optimism, but that's one of the things, if I was going to be optimistic about both sides of the ball, it seems like these players are going to be thinking less and playing faster in 2024.
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of exciting things going on with that secondary, and like we said at the start, it's great to hear those former offensive linemen say good things about the line. That'll do it for us this week. The next availability we have is next Tuesday, and we'll be back then.